Get back and used to this. All righty, we are here. We are back. I am Black. It is Connections here on JLJ Media. I'm the JLJ of JLJ Media, JLJ. I'm here with my partner in all things race relations, Jerry Karol. I made myself laugh on that one. Jerry Karol, all things relations. It's you.
I'm not Black. In case anyone,
you're not Black.
In case anyone couldn't tell.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my goodness. Welcome to the show. It's been a while. Number one, we were going to do this earlier. I mean, like an earlier date. But he was getting over being sick. And then as you guys, most of you know, I got COVID over Thanksgiving time period a couple weeks ago. So we're here now. And actually, I think it's good. It's December, last month of the year. We've had talks throughout the year. I think this is good. So I have to first ask you, how are you doing? Because before we do anything else, I'm sure we're all doing okay. So how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing really well, actually. I had a weird, I don't even know what it was, James. It wasn't COVID. I don't need to share the details, but I wasn't throwing up, but I was kind of nauseous, but just like this, it was just this weird thing. And it lasted for like 3 weeks. It's like, I'd rather just be like, just obviously sick and then have it be over and then move on, but it just kind of lingered. But yeah, that's all in the past. Here I am. I'm feeling, I'd say I'm like 98%,
So it wasn't pneumonia, wasn't the flu, wasn't like that? They did some of that stuff, really? Okay.
Yeah, I had I said I wasn't going to talk about but I had diarrhea for
I want to hear everything. I want to hear it all. I want to hear it all.
Obviously sick and then have it be over and then move on, but it just kind of lingered. But yeah, that's all in the past. Here I am. I'm feeling, I'd say I'm like 98%.
Okay. So it wasn't pneumonia. Let's just talking. Never mind. Sorry, let's go there. Yes. Anyway, back to you. Back to the other you. Back to you. The other you. I have two computers going, so it's all crazy. Anyway, so I'm glad you're doing bad. My code. It was crazy talk, and folks don't know. Right now, it's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going around. That's just flu-based, allergy-based stuff. Then the COVID stuff. It's a whole in LA are talking about. It's gonna be a triple threat this winter. I'm like, yay, I love it. The hype machine. But I'm like, it's that time of year anyway. When you go to the winter time and the weather drops and the weather gets wet. And then so you're susceptible. I mean, I was a nurse. I mean, that just happens every time of the year. It's always you should be just careful, and this stuff does happen. So it just like kind of comes up.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, it's time for my list that I always do every time. You guys always say, and one day I will probably do a book of my list. Everybody keeps asking me that. And I'm like, one day I might do like a book of lists, of JLJ list. And here we go. Are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I'm gonna get my pen and write down like 2 names and then stop. So that's how.
Yeah, that's usually do. I usually watch you smile too. I want to go, oh, that one. Okay. Here we go. Ben Shapiro, Bill Maher, Jordan Peterson, Dave Chappelle, Eddie Murphy, Candace Owens, Gary Owens, Stacey Dash, Herschel Walker, who's not in the Senate in Georgia. Did I get it? Did I get excited about that? Christian Walker, his son. Carbon Copy the movie. The Toy the movie. Blazing Saddles. Spaceballs. We ain't found shit. Gene Wilder. Richard Pryor. Cleavon Little. Mel Brooks. Ab Fab, the TV series. My former employers after Buzz TV. Harlem, the city. The Mission District of San Francisco, the Fillmore District of San Francisco, Compton, Brooklyn, Austin, Texas, Boston. Little Nas X, Olivia Newton-John, John Denver, Shania Twain, Faith Hill, Nelly and Tim McGraw, Garth Brooks. The Cleveland Indians, the Washington Redskins, of course, the name has been changed. Atlanta Braves, Colin Kaepernick, NASCAR. Those big documentary subjects, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. The song, Baby It's Cold Outside. Former President Donald J. Trump, former President George W. Bush, former President Barack Obama, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Run DMC, Roxanne Shante, MC Light, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, Pam Grier, Jennifer Beals, Gene Roddenberry, Angie Dickinson, Kate and Allie, the TV show, Cagney and Lacey, MASH, Julia, the TV show, Dominique Devereaux of Dynasty, Ellen Holly of One Life to Live, Tanya Peekins of All My Children, Ruben Santiago Hudson, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Rita Moreno, Seda Cruz, Sofia Vergara, Lynette Romero, New Coke, MTV, Netflix, Days of Our Lives leaving NBC and moving to Peacock, Whoopi Goldberg, Fire Island, the movie, RuPaul's Drag Race, Laverne Cox, Candace Kane, Caitlyn Jenner, Pose, the TV series, Billy Porter, The Rock, Joel Osteen, Brene Brown, and the wonderful Dr. Maya Angelou. Those are tonight's list. I always ask you, what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I wrote down, I don't think it's the right word now that I'm thinking about it. I wrote disgraced comedians, but I don't know if disgraced is perhaps too strong, but controversial or in the news for various reasons, comedians. But then as it always does, it goes in a direction that I can't predict or connect. And so I just enjoy hearing the names. And I am curious about those last three, though. Joel Osteen, Brene Brown, and Maya Angelou. I mean, gosh. In my head, and this is a super generalization.
Please do it. I want you to do it. Yes.
You know, Joel Osteen is Joel Osteen, right? I mean, I don't follow him, so I'm not super aware of his day to day, but I imagine he's not the most, shall we say, woke kind of race conscious kind of guy. Although I could be wrong. And then
go back in time where he didn't allow people when there was a hurricane to stay at his mega church.
Well, there you go. So
yes,
but I couldn't be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You could. I was like, no, I'm letting you know you could be wrong. No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
And then Brene Brown, who I'm actually a big fan of, and I think I know she gets some shit from people, and we could go in and nitpick if it's deserved or not, but for the most part, I think she's kind of, for a white woman, she does pretty good, and she's stepped up, I'd say, the last few years in a more direct way.
I agree.
And I think mostly positive. Yet she's still this huge, some of the criticisms, like she takes a lot of the space just because of her celebrity. So it's like, well, what do you want? You want a white woman to like speak up on this stuff, but you don't want her to speak up because she's taking away the space. And then Maya Angelou is just Maya Angelou. She's awesome. So in my head, I was going like, douchebag, center, but positive, and then like, So anyway, that's all I got on your list. Although I did write down Blazing Saddles just because that movie's hilarious.
Yes, Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, two of my favorites. They have their own controversies too. A lot of things on the list are people who cause controversy, one way or the other. And a lot of it is through talking and speech, depending on, and it could be a movie, could be music, it could be, they defied what was, we always do it this way. This is how it's always been. Each of the people I mentioned, even the rappers I mentioned, which I mentioned a lot of female rappers, and DJ Jazzy Fresh and Fresh Prince, they were big because they didn't cuss in their raps, and they were really homegrown kind of storytelling things. They were big. They won the first Grammy, and everybody was like upset because it was televised. Like every list, even Trump, they defied something that was the norm. On some level. I almost added Kanye, but I've canceled him myself. And I have no problem telling people why. And Elon Musk, I almost added him too, but I'm just over him at this point. So I didn't add those two to my list.
I don't know if you have so thank you for that. I've noticed, James, I mean, how many shows have we done? Probably 6, 8 together.
Yeah, this point, yeah, I got to look at it. You know, over half a dozen over.
Yeah, at least. And I remember when you first were sharing the list, you would ask me, and we'd have some sort of jumping off point, but it was almost like you were intentionally not revealing the thinking or the origin of the list. And as you just did, you kind of gave like, yeah, here's where I was going with it. Is that something you've kind of decided to do consciously, or is it just like, hey, I've done these lists so many times, I might as well, start telling people,
Everything I do is deliberate. My fans should know that. You should know by now. Everything James Lott Jr. does is deliberate, even if it seems casual or whatever. I don't let you see me sweat, as that old commercials. I don't let you see me sweat. But everything is thought out. And the reasoning, I love that you asked this question. The reasoning was because of the discussion I want to have tonight. I want to reveal the list this time.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, because this discussion is going to be very timely, and it's happening right now. And it's affecting it's affecting race, gender, it's affecting age, size. I could have added Lizzo in there. Somebody I could have added it. I'm like, that could fit the thing I want to talk about. And that is now the openness of just saying where the fuck you want to. That's kind of the clinical way I want to say it. But literally, I'm seeing what I'm seeing online, what I'm seeing on print, what I'm seeing on stage, what I'm seeing is that people are just like, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to double down on it. And for better or worse, it's causing conflict out there in the world. And, and I'll just start off with the whole Dave Chappelle stuff. And hello, guys. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Glad you're here. Thanks for likes. I've been defending Dave Chappelle. So I felt like I've watched many of his specials, and I like them, actually. I like the way he tells a story. And it's not a bump punchline. It's a story with something that's funny in it. And he picks all kinds of subjects. And he was like, you're not going to cancel me. So segments of the population want to cancel him. He was like, no, I'm going to keep going and telling my story. And I feel, for me, that not everything, literally, is black and white. I always use that phrase, but it's like, that's the discussion I can say. I just hate that phrase. But everything's just not so clear. It's like shades of gray. And if you are a group that you feel marginalized by his comedy or hurt by his comedy, I would never tell you not to feel that way. That's your right to feel that way and whatever. But if I don't feel that way, you can't be mad at me because I don't feel that way. I can still support you. I understand maybe where you're coming from, or or I don't understand. I'm not trans, or I'm not this. But if I see his comedy as something that's a little higher than I think it is, and there's a point to it, I won't cancel him. But recently, he brought on Elon Musk on one of his shows recently. I think it was San Francisco, and he got booed for 10 minutes. Elon got booed for 10 minutes. And I was kind of like, I just want to tell my brother last night, now, why would you do that? I would think, Elon Musk obviously is very controversial right now, the whole Twitter stuff, that you know what you're doing if you bring him on. And my brother was like, well, he's in rarefied air. He's somebody, maybe Dave doesn't know this. I'm like, Dave's humor is very observational. I have a hard time believing that. I just feel like maybe he knows, now it's like, now Dave's getting my nerves a little bit. Because almost like, now, are you trying to be controversial? Like, you really tried hard to get those clicks and things? Because he's just, if you bring him on stage or a Kanye on stage, anyway, it's going to cause something. And so people, to me, it's almost like now you're doing it on purpose to get attention. That's what bugs me. That's my one example. My first example. Go.
Well, I mean, just in your profession, you know way more about this than I do and live this around when you're in, I don't even know what the umbrella term, media or
I
celebrity,
mean, say media, say
right?
media.
So obviously, and I know Elon Musk is, he's not in media. Well, I guess now he is with
Oh,
Twitter.
he is. He's Twitter. He
So
owns Twitter.
whoever, if you're Elon Musk, you're Dave Chappelle, you're James Lott Jr., you're, a lot of the people you mentioned, on one hand, I get it. Like you're trying to sell whatever it is you're trying to sell, music or movies or Twitter blue subscriptions or, or Teslas or, whatever it is, like you're trying to sell. So on one hand, like, I don't want to be naive and say, like, I get it. Like, what's the phrase? Like all press is
All
good
publicity is
press.
good publicity.
Yeah. Or, yeah, whatever. Right. So, but then I guess for me, maybe this is just a desire. I don't see a lot of wisdom.
Right.
Like I don't see a lot. And so for me, like I wrote down, and maybe we can go there. Like I think that like the debate around like cancel culture is kind of like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes it misses some of the main points. Like the way I understand cancel is like you said something that I didn't like or that was offensive or whatever the charge is. And so that's not okay and you suck. Right.
Right.
But is that really, I mean, like if I was to, say that about Elon Musk, like I don't really have the power to cancel Elon Musk. I might say, he's an awful person and all these things, but it's not going to impact his visibility.
Right.
But I think like when we're canceling, what are we really doing or wanting to do or trying to do? We're trying to remove, or shame that person, that perspective, that, ethos so much that it doesn't exist anymore, or that it doesn't carry the weight that maybe it did or was hoping to. And so I think this idea of like canceling gets thrown around so, I don't know, so loosely. And so I'm more interested in okay, why is like what Elon Musk is doing, problematic? Why are his views problematic? Why are Dave Chappelle's views problematic? Why are Kanye's views problematic? And there's so many different ways to enter into those conversations in so many different contexts, right? But like that, to me, that's like the more interesting conversation, because I don't know, and maybe again I'm being naive, and maybe there are enough people with enough power and visibility and influence who can or could potentially cancel, a Musk or a Kanye or a Dave Chappelle. But is that really what we're, what we hope to do? Like Dave Chappelle's not going anywhere. Elon Musk isn't going anywhere. So how do we have these conversations that aren't condoning, what we believe and know to be hurtful, harmful, stereotypes, et cetera, narratives, but at the same time, engaging in conversations to educate, to inform, to enlighten, and bring some wisdom to the conversations. But I don't know, maybe that's naive and too hopeful on my end.
My whole thing is I'm all about consequence culture. That's where my stance is. So to answer your question, that's my answer. It's holding them accountable and knowing there are consequences to what you say and do.
Absolutely.
That's where I'm at. I mean, you're right. Cancel culture is kind of the end of the line, highbrow thing that everybody talks about. We have to really look at why I agree with you. Why we're canceling somebody, why they're being attacked, what's going on, what are they doing? Before I even get to cancel, I'm stuck at consequence. So I know for a fact when I do shows like this, or I do a Star Wars reaction show, or a soap opera reaction show, I'm going to get reactions out of people. That's just that's it is. I say I hate Darth Vader, which I don't, of course. I love Darth Vader. But to say I hate Darth Vader there'll be Vader fans who are like, screw you, fuck you, I love Darth Vader. They're gonna go off. That's almost like the consequence of me opening my big mouth and saying I don't like Darth Vader. That's okay, that's fine. Now, there's some folks will be like, let's go further and cancel James Lott Jr. because he hates Darth Vader. And so for me, I've had death threats and things because of stuff that to me is so benign. But it's like, well, you like the new dynasty? I'm going to hunt you down and get your daughter. And they do that to me. And that's what's so ridiculous. That's more of the that's more of the hyper end result. So I'm with you. I say before we get there, have to be here and just understand, almost understand the rules. I say that in quotes, the rules, because there's not rules, but like the rules that if you say stuff, there can be consequences. You talk shit about Adidas and they can cancel you, and they did. They have a right to that. They have the right to say we're pulling out the deal.
Yeah.
If you choose to have two men kiss on television, knowing that half your advertising is Christian, they're going to pull out. But if you feel strongly about this kiss,
no pun intended.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said they're going to pull out, no pun intended. But sorry to interrupt your flow.
That's good. I like that. That's good. That's good. You get the bell for that. Yes, that's good. But okay, for example, I could have added her on there too. Candace Cameron Bure has spoken out. She's on GAC, which is a openly Christian new network that's Hallmark adjacent. And she said she left Hallmark to go to GAC for family-friendly films. Now, as you know, her and her brother are Christians. They've always been openly Christian. I know Candace Cameron. I've met her, worked with her several times. Lovely person. But she's always been openly Christian. And she doubled down on it, trying to cancel her. They're going to cancel her. She's a star, whatever. But I'm like, let's go back to what she could be saying that could be hurtful. Like you said, like what could we go back to that? Just look at that and look at consequence. So she may lose some fans. That's a consequence. And I feel like when you say stuff, and they're saying hi to you in the chat. Say hi, Jared.
Hello.
He's here. Thank you guys. Thanks for bringing this up. We're talking about it, folks. We're talking about it. We got some live folks in the chat watching, and so please, and add your comments too. Add your comments in the chat, and I'll read them all and tell what's going on. But people, my thing that's so disingenuous to me, and almost feels like you don't get a pass, is that I get it because you're right. You're not naive about this. I'm gonna say, what's your name, Jared? It's not. It's right there in the chat room. It's on the thing here. You're not naive. You are correct in the sense that everyone's trying to get, it's clickbait.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to click. Come to me. Do this. And I wanted to, clearly, I want people to watch my stuff, but I don't do clickbait. I'm sorry. I've chosen not to do it like that. And I think it's wrong, actually. So for me, I don't like it. This is disingenuous. It's not authentic. And so it's like, okay, so, but if you say this, Candace Bure, you've been in the business for 100 years because you were a child in this business. You know the business. You're not a dummy. You were on The View. Also, you're not a dummy. You've been around. You know if you're going to say this, it's going to cause a stir. So almost to me, it's like, then don't say anything. Why say something? Why do you have to say something? But then it's also like she has a right to say something, but don't cry because don't cry for me, Argentina. Anyway, just because you're getting backlash. Please.
Well, and you said that earlier, and I meant to comment on like from your list, people who have said things. I forget exactly how you said it, but like people say things and then they're out there, and so that's what my response to that when I was talking about like wisdom. Like there's like a wisdom in yes, not saying anything or saying something in a way that is very intentionally, even if it's a charged subject or topic, saying it in a way that at least attempts to remove some of the charge. So for example, I mean, you know me, we know each other, my history with. So if I for whatever reason, I'm Christian and I don't believe in, gay marriage and homosexuality and the whole thing, right? Like on one level, like, fuck you. That's like, you're hurting people by believing that, right? But then if I come with it, or I, or whoever comes with that, it's just gonna go down. It's not gonna elevate anything. It's not gonna bring about anything. So how could I, hey, this is what I believe. I know it's controversial, but it's really important to me to say this. And I understand that there are going to be some people who are, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, that's wishful thinking, I think, because there are very few people, especially in the celebrity, who have that wisdom and that awareness and that, frankly, courage to be like that. And I know Dave Chappelle's a comedian and he's, that's his job to make people laugh. But like Elon Musk, like he's not wise. Kanye's not wise. Like, and this isn't a diss on their intelligence. Wisdom and intelligence aren't the same thing, but like really kind of have an intentionality that isn't off the cuff, isn't, as you said, clickbait or whatever, whatever the variation of that is. And that's what I don't see like ever, almost. You brought up Brene Brown, like, and I haven't been listening to a lot of her lately, but for a while I get a sense of wisdom from her, like a thoughtfulness in how she's talking about, like a vulnerability, which you would expect from her, right? And I don't get a vulnerability from any of these people. It's vulnerable to be a comedian and go out there and tell your jokes. I don't want to diss it totally, but like true, like recognition and like a meta conversation.
Well, I would disagree with you on that for Dave Chappelle. I feel like he does. I feel like Chris Rock was that kind of comedian. I feel like he's that kind of comedian. I feel like Margaret Cho's that kind of comedian. I do feel like there's wisdom in what they're talking about. Actually, I would disagree with that. I think, because I do watch their specials. Even Joan Rivers, there's some things, she had some stuff that was, a little bit outrageous, but then she would turn around to something very serious. Like she was making commentary on stuff. And so I think there are certain comedians who are just silly and have a good time, and they're fun, and we laugh, blah, 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 blah. But I think there's certain, I guess when I first saw, I think it was Bigger and Blacker, when I first saw Chris Rock, I was like, this guy is smart. He has a routine, which I won't say the name, it's blacks versus N-words. It's a famous routine. I think it's smart. I think there is wisdom in it. I think I can relate to it as a black person. I can relate to it and living it. I mean, there were things I'd never seen before, heard before in comedy. And some of these comedians I think they're really smart. So I would say for some of those, in this cases, I feel like I do see wisdom in some of the stuff.
Yeah. And, you are way more historically and especially contemporarily in touch with the ins and outs of some of these than I am. So I fully respect and trust your wisdom into the wisdom or not of people, more than me. I was going to say something that just flew out of my head.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
It is. I'll be 50 next year.
I know you're gonna join the 50 club. I'll be 54, so trust me. I forget shit all the time.
Yeah,
it'll come to you. I'll say something.
It'll come. I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to
force it. But I'm gonna go off my list for a second. I'm gonna do it off my list. And yes, and hello, Coach Chandra. She's in here too. Sadly, Connie's behavior has been consistent over 25 years. My brother went to school with him. He was the same way before his career took off. Let's see. Okay, I want to mention. I know. I'll mention the name. You'll be like, why are you mentioning her name? I'm going to mention Olivia Newton-John. May she rest in peace. So you guys may not know this out there, but there are two separate country academies. There's like the CMAs and the ACAs, and there's different ACM, or there's two ACA is something different. Adult Children Alcoholics is something different. There are two academies. They have two separate award shows, do separate things. And you want to know why? You want to know why, Jared? They're two different things.
I have a feeling it has something to do with Olivia Newton-John.
And you will be correct. Olivia Newton-John and John Denver especially. So, but Olivia Newton-John was the one. Here's a little history, folks, for you guys, and why it's so interesting when things happen. Olivia Newton-John came out. When she first came out, she was country. She was country pop, right? I honestly love you. Have you never been mellow? Please. All this stuff was all country sounding, country, the connect the dots country. But because she became so popular, and she was from Australia, and she was an American, they split. People got pissed. There was one thing, they split into two. And that's how it is today. Because of Newton-John. Another thing I wanted to bring up really quickly, Shania Twain and Garth Brooks. Two of the biggest stars, period, in the 90s. I mean, they sold hundreds of millions of records. I mean, they're just huge. Garth Brooks was criticized because he was huge crossover because he did a lot. I love Garth Brooks. I'm a big Garth Brooks fan. He did a lot. He took a rock approach to his country. He was a big fan of Kiss, of all things. That was his group. Shania Twain, need not even say more. She came out with a midriff, Who's Better If Your Boots Been Under, Still the One, Let's Go Girls, all she took a pop approach to her country music also. They both called it country. And luckily the fans stuck with them. And they were big on the country charts, but they were also big across the whole world in the pop charts too. And again, people tried to cancel them because they didn't fit in the twangy box of like a George Strait or Randy Travis or all that. They didn't fit in that box. And again, but to me, these two artists were being authentic. They were being who they were. I know both their stories, seen them both in concert several times. I mean, and they were being true to themselves because, like me, we grew up in the 70s and 80s. And you grew up in the 80s also. We had a lot of influences. Shania Twain's husband/producer produced Def Leppard, Bryan Adams, Mutt Lange, did everybody, all the rock gods. So it's very interesting to me when the audience will come at somebody who really is being authentically themselves and really enjoys, but they don't fit the box. That's another thing that's happening nowadays too.
Yeah. Interesting you brought up Bryan Adams. That was my first concert in 1985.
Oh, is that really? Oh my God.
The San Diego Sports Arena.
It was summer of 69.
Number 69, Cuts Like a Knife.
I run to you. Yeah, that song. Yes, I know. I used to love Bryan Adams. He was big. That was big time.
Yeah, he was huge. I'm surprised it was at the sports arena, which probably held 15,000. But looking back on it, it's like, man, he could have sold out Jack Murphy of 50.
Oh, he could. What bigger? So yeah, because that's so flat. Oh, wow, we love Bryan. Yes, we like Bryan Adams. But
anyway, I like what. So I have two totally separate thoughts or angles. One kind of a question. Well, one here, I'll start with the comment, kind of my thing, and then my question is kind of more for you. Well, it's kind of hypothetical, but it's also, I think you might be in a better position to have some insight into being in the media industry. But my comment is so I'm big into philosophy and Buddhism and detachment and equanimity and the whole thing, just in general, but especially around race and diversity and inclusion, all the things. I think we miss so much of what's going on with us, with other people, with our relationships when we don't have that kind of natural, or maybe not natural, but that disposition of let me see, let me listen, let me learn, let me think, let me reflect. And so I always wonder, okay, let's say, Garth Brooks is huge. And, I know social media wasn't around in the 90s, but right. What kind of person, and that sounds like a judgment, but I'm always interested in why do we as individuals or collectively care so much? And pick anything, politics, sports, music, things that I don't want to say they don't matter, because they do, they're part of our lives. They do matter, but they don't really matter. But we care so much that, Garth Brooks is going this direction, or, so-and-so won the Grammy when I thought so-and-so should have. And we attach ourselves so almost embarrassingly often. And I wonder if we if we even realize it. I think most people don't, and if they do, they don't care. And I think that level of attachment, and there's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The 5 Levels of Attachment, and it speaks of this whole phenomenon, like and how it just gets progressively more aggressive, basically. And so I think that it's like this lack of self-actualization that comes like, oh, I'm going to attach myself to whether Garth Brooks is country or rock or that. Like, why? And I think, so we
why.
Well, I do, but I do.
You know why.
I know intellectually and like historically, and I can study it, but personally, I'm interested. Like, why do people do that?
In chat room right now, they're talking about this, talking about Living Color, which I've mentioned. Living Color, the band. I saw them in concert. They opened for Rolling Stones. What's funny is
Cult of Personality.
Yes, Cult Personality. Yes.
Yeah, I was into them.
Yeah, no, we know who they are. We talked about another show. We talked about them, but I'm glad you're in the chat. We'll bring this up. Here's the answer to his question, kind of, because you in the chat, many of you guys are my soap fans, so you know how what he just said probably home for you guys, because right now what's happening in the soap world online more than before ever before. People are taking huge attachments to a coupling or a character. And they're saying, screw the show. We only watch it for that character or that coupling. I'm like, well, usually you watch it for the whole show, and you may have some favorites, but now the attachment, like you said, attachment, the attachment is now, it's hashtag, you don't know any of this stuff, but chat will know this, hashtag Sprina, hashtag Taraya, hashtag, whatever. They're so hooked on this thing, and that's it. And so I'll ask you, do you think possibly it's just a herd mentality that we naturally are herders? That we just is that part of it? I mean, like it's almost I just like the way you brought that up. It's kind of like we just all seem to like, we're picking this and we're gonna hold on to this and that's it.
Well, if I'm being cynical, so my cynical answer is like, people are fucking losers. Like if you care more about that, where you're gonna get in fights or beat someone up or kill someone or whatever the context is, like there's something, but that's cynical, because I know that's like life, and there's 8 billion people now, 9, I forget the number, it seems to go up a billion,
I think it's 8 or 9.
Yeah, every week it goes up a billion or something like that, but so but at the same time, to be fair, it's like, hey, I get it, like, and so that's where it comes back to the wisdom. Like, what if we said, oh, I'm really into this show or this musician or this sport or this team or this, like, whatever it is, which is fine. Everyone has their things, and I'm interested in it. I enjoy it. I'm invested in the direction that they're going or it's going or whatever. Like, that's all fine. I don't think that's unhealthy. But how is there like this meta conversation with ourselves where we go, and I'm more than this, and I'm not interested in getting it, for example, in an argument with someone on Twitter about who's coupling with who in a soap opera.
The chat room, someone says, when you don't know who you are and have no identity, you seek it elsewhere.
Well said. Whoever said that.
That was Coach Chandra. She said
Coach Chandra. There you go. Thank you. Perfect.
Also,
right?
Folks have taken preferences to the extreme. That has definitely happened in all areas. I'm in the Star Wars world too. So there's some folks that are a little cray in there also, to the extreme.
Well, because then, so here's to bring it back to like Kanye and Musk and Chappelle and some of these, court. I don't know if this is a fair, bucketing, but like courting controversy just by speaking, just being, themselves and having the audience because they're so huge, right? And I know generally the answer to this, but I'm interested in your insights into this. Like, I know when you're huge, whether you're a politician or a musician or an athlete or whatever, you have advisors. You have people, whether official advisors that are actually, hey, say this, don't say that, whatever, like, or kind of unofficial, and they help you navigate the celebrity.
Yeah.
So does someone like Kanye, does he have any advisors? Are they telling him to be this way, or is he just like, I don't need advisors, I'm Kanye, and I'm going to go out and
probably the second,
and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to receive the blowback and the canceling, and I'm going to double down. Like, is there any sort of adversarial role that someone is playing in his life, officially or unofficially? I mean, just
I doubt it.
And is it just because, hey, I don't need that? Why do I need an advisor? I'm Elon Musk. I'm the richest man in the world. Why do I need an advisor? I can do whatever I want.
Exactly.
And so,
sorry, please go ahead.
Well, so I mean, that's, to me, like, that's the heart of the problem. Like, that's what we're dealing with. You have power. You have people with like basically unchecked power. And yes, there are consequences, and there can be attempts at canceling. Maybe they lose a few fans here, or lose a contract here, or whatever. It might shift a little bit, but for the most part, it's, there's I think Kanye's and Musk are still doing okay. And so it comes back to this, like, what's the intentionality? Where's the wisdom? And I don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't hear it. I don't feel like there's political differences aside, I don't feel like there's a genuine goal other than to stir up shit.
I have to mention, I'm sorry to mention in the chat room, I need to mention this, even though I never want to get married myself. But Joe Biden has signed the Defense of Marriage Act.
I saw that, yes.
Lord. I'm so happy. Separation of church and state. Trust me, I believe in God and everything myself, but separation of church and state. Again, I don't want to get married. I always tell people I want the choice to not get married. That's always my stance.
Yep.
That. So that's something else. That's one of those discussion. Something else. But back to what you're saying. I want to go back to what you're saying. I'm going to get somebody to make sure I say this. It goes back to, you said, why do they care? And number one, Kanye, there's also mental issues, bipolarism, and all stuff that's going on too. Mm-hmm. And I think it's running rampant. I'm not saying excusing him for everything, but like it's running rampant. So clearly people around him aren't able to penetrate him enough to get him whatever he needs. So he's able to just run free and wild and say and do the most outrageous things in the world. Like they love Hitler, Nazi, like just saying stuff that, for me, I'm just like, it's outrageous. Like, you hear it, you go, okay, that's obviously a crazy person talking. It's outrageous, and he's being whatever he's being. But I understand there is a group of people out there who are being hurt by this, and there is a rise of anti-Semitism happening. There's like the rise of Asian hate happening, and a rise of anti-gay stuff happening, and there's a rise of stuff happening. So I get that he has a huge following, and I'm seeing folks go, okay, like me, who've canceled. I basically have canceled him. I'm done with him. But then there are others who are like, but he's Black and he's speaking the truth. And so they follow that. So it's kind of like, there's a whole divide in there too, as happens when it comes to stuff like this. And it's maddening, because it's like, well, he's not being canceled easily. Should he be canceled? Should it be more of should it be more of a consequence thing? If we all ignored him, say with Donald Trump, if we all ignored him and made him just go, like, with that, make him just go away, or because we're getting the clicks and the clickbait and the ratings, and ABC is talking about it, and NBC is talking about, like, he's on Fox. I mean Alex Jones had to go, excuse me, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And Alex Jones is like, this is too much. It's just like, it's kind of like we're giving him the attention he does not deserve.
Yeah, and you said something, and we've touched on it in this conversation, but I just want to make it clear from my perspective. The reason any of this matters is that people who are already marginalized and already experiencing harm and worse, and trauma and worse, and are being further, are being continually perpetuated, in perpetuity, being marginalized, being stigmatized. So yeah, great. Thank you, Biden, for signing the law, and awesome. That's very good news. And it's so necessary. Like, it's even more necessary now than it was 6 months ago or a year ago, before all this DeSantis and all the things, right? And like, yeah, you think like, oh, it can't, I forget how it was worded, but like now, like interracial marriage is like officially can't be taken away from the Constitution or something like that, right? Okay, that's good. It's fucking 2023. Really? So just now? Like, until he signed this bill, like the potential of that being illegal was there, like that. And so when you think about like the harm and the actual harm and the potential harm that is being done and could be done and unfortunately will be done, that's why these conversations matter. And that's why we have to decide, like, all right, why does it matter? In what ways specifically does it matter that Kanye's talking like this? That Donald Trump is having, dinner at Mar-a-Lago with whoever that dude was, the white supremacist. It's like those things matter. And so I think it's really important, and yeah, me and you, we can talk, and we have, you have a following, but you're not at Kanye's level. No offense. I don't think. I mean, if you are, like, let's talk, right? And neither am I. So whatever our level of influence, how do we speak with conviction and wisdom, and kind of not worry if we're canceling or not? Like, here's what I believe, and here's why it's important, and here's why I want whoever's listening to me to listen to me.
I want to touch something else that I think is also a symptom that we should look, because I like this, the way we're going with that, because you and I think, are very similar, and like, we always want to know what the problem is before we even get there. I mean, I think I'm always looking at we're fixers. We want to look at the problem, see like how did we get here first, so that we can fix that. So here's the deal. I'm from San Francisco, so I'm thinking about San Francisco right now. So you guys at home, if you've never been to San Francisco, let me just give you a little brief history. There are different areas of San Francisco. And two areas I've mentioned in my list, because I'm going by my list. There are two areas in my list that I mentioned: the Fillmore District and the Mission District. I've lived in both. He's from the Bay Area, so you probably know a little bit what I'm talking about. So the Mission District was mostly Hispanic, and heavily Hispanic. I lived near 16th and Mission, BART station. I was on a street called Natoma, where I used to live, right by South Van Ness.
I know
exactly. I didn't live in South Park. Exactly, by the Victoria Theater. Roxy Theater's over there. Pancho Villa burrito places over there. I mean, I was like, that was my area. I gotta say, this person is trying to show porn. Let me grab them really quick. Remove. Okay, and it happens every once in a while. Put user in timeout. Thank you. Okay.
Blondie's Bar and No Grill.
Yeah.
On Valencia.
Okay. Yeah, all that. Well, that's all. So that's one area right there. There's also the Fillmore, which is also an offshoot of the Western Addition and all that stuff. McAllister Street, all over there. That's where the Fillmore is over there, and Little Tokyo is over there, and I think the 22 bus that goes through all those areas. Come from the castle.
I have a poster of the 22 bus at the top of my stairs here.
You really? Oh, funny. See, that's a famous.
I used to live in Potrero Hill, and I worked in Pacific Heights. I'd ride the 22.
All the way down. It goes through
all
every
the way
neighborhood.
through. Yep.
That's one of the few buses that went through every neighborhood, right?
It really does.
But it really does. So the Fillmore. So I've seen the time I've been here. I've seen, on this earth, I've been here on this earth 54 years. I've seen the change both areas have happened. And these are two examples. It's happening here in Inglewood where I live. It's happening all over the country. But I want these two. So one, there was a man named Jim Jones, a horrible man named Jim Jones, who killed 909 people in Guyana, Jonestown, Guyana. Now 330 were children, actually. It's a famous, you guys all know this famous case. But he started his church in the Fillmore, where it was mostly Black folks live there. And people don't understand, they were looking for a way out of their situations. and he offered them a situation. So again, going back to, let's find what the problem is. There was something going on there. The mission, yes, it was dirty. Yes, there was shit everywhere, whatever. But there were cultural touchstones that were part of the mission. I always joked it was the sunniest area of San Francisco. I was like, all the Latin heat. All this stuff going there. I've gone to both areas recently. Look nothing like their former selves. The mission almost made me cry. I'm telling you, I almost started crying when I was on 18th and Mission. And I'm sorry, excuse my language, seeing all these white folks had gentrified, that took down the murals that I remember seeing on that street or on those side streets, took them down, painted over them. And now it's just brunch spots and Buy Right Creamery and all these things. I'm like, I literally almost started crying. I just thought, this is so not fair. It's like, now you bought into this neighborhood that was cheap to buy into, and you kept none of the culture. And just came and the West and Fillmore area, when they kicked out the McAllister projects on it, they kicked all them out. Said black folks, go to Oakland, go somewhere else, go to Hayward, go to the East Bay. It's a whole thing, folks. East Bay, whatever. And also they were gone. We're gonna make some. We'll make affordable housing. No, we'll make them senior citizen housing and retirement housing. And are there any black folks living in those retirement homes? Probably not. It's like, it hurt my heart to see those areas that have such vitality and history, Fillmore Jazz, all this just stuff. I used to go to Bimbos all the time for concerts and things. I mean, it's just now it's just a shell of its former self.
Yeah.
And that just makes me so sorry, somebody chatted before you say something. He shared family friend lost a wife and 2 children in that tragedy. Oh wow. So you actually knew somebody who,
yeah.
Yes. I didn't know anybody who personally who was in it, but I know friends who said they almost went to Guyana and they chose not to.
Well, gosh, if we had another 3 hours.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. I just want to kind of mention, because it's back today. I just want to mention that it's kind of the consequence stuff.
It's knowing, like, I'm familiar with that history. So actually, when my dad died in 2000, I inherited a bunch of his books, and I wasn't really a big reader back then. So I was just kind of getting into reading. And so I'm like, oh shit. Like, I probably gave away or sold, lots of books that probably now I would have loved to have kept and had read. But I remember there was one of the books that I kept because the title looked cool. It was called In My Father's House. So I'm like, okay. So I kept, I don't know, 100 books or whatever. And over the last, 20 years, I've read all of them. But In My Father's House, I figured it was going to be something about like a father and a son. And then it's like, oh, my dad just died and I'll read this. Well, it turned out that it was the first book that I read that was my introduction into cults. And it was written by, and I forgot her name because it's been a while, 20 years. His inner circle, the woman, Layton, I think her name was Layton, last name, who they called Jim Jones' father, right? Because he was the father of everyone. And, and so I read this, I'm like, holy shit. And then that was when I learned about, Jonestown. And then I opened, and then I started reading books on, Manson and Scientology and all these other cults. So I've done a lot of reading over the years on cults. So I'm very familiar with that. And by the way, the People's Temple, the original People's Temple it's on Geary and Fillmore, right next to the Fillmore Theater. It's no longer there because I looked for it probably 15 years ago.
I heard that building is still creepy. I heard it's a little creepy over there.
It's a post office. It's a post office. And I don't know if it's the same building or if they tore it down and rebuilt it. It's a different address. Because I remember reading some book and it was like, it was, whatever the address was. I'm like, wait a sec, that's right next to the Fillmore. I got to go see this. And I went, and that address doesn't exist. So, But
I heard that area is creepy. I don't go over there. I'm like, it's okay.
It is a little creepy because, like, right on the corner is like this busy. There's there's the Boom Boom Room and there's the Indian restaurant, and like it's jamming, right? And then like half a block down, it's like this just big empty boulevard, and it is kind of creepy. But I went off on a little tangent. But what you pointed out, I think, relates back to what we're talking about. Like, if you know the history, you don't have to know every single detail about every single neighborhood and city and movement and gentrification. Right. But if you understand that kind of stuff happens, then when you hear a new story or a version of it in, today, you go, oh yeah, that's the pattern. And it happened, and then that pattern happens because people do this, or because people don't learn this, or because, right? And then when you start to recognize, then individually and collectively, we can start, educating others and making decisions that are different, lifestyle change decisions, political decisions, et cetera. But people, you're right. Like, hey, the Mission, I can get a cheap place for, $1,000 20 years ago. And then like, here we are, like, yeah, there's barely any culture here anymore because people don't give a shit because they don't know. Maybe if they knew, they might give a shit. Maybe,
maybe, right? Maybe. And it goes to if they care or not. Like you said earlier, do they care? Do they not care? Is it more about, are we at a point now where we're so self-absorbed and so into self, we're in our own little bubbles that we're just like, as long as it don't affect me, I'm good. As long as it don't hurt me, I'm good. I feel like we're getting more. I know he's crazy. I know what Kanye saying is crazy. I know that Olivia Newton-John's their songs were country. Like, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm fine. But I go back to the collective. You and I both are about that on some level. We always want the collective.
Totally.
Because what does the collective do if everyone is thinking that way? The reverse of if everyone has torches and saying cancel, what about the other direction? There are a lot of folks just go, well, it's not me. I don't believe that. It's not me. I didn't do anything. I didn't own slaves. I didn't do anything. Like, you hear all same, the hands go up, over and over again. I didn't do shit. I didn't do nothing. I'm done with it. It's like, but you must have an opinion on there somewhere, and you must feel something for the group that, we need to look at and address on some level. I mean, like, I don't like the food. Okay, well, that's great, but these murals were beautiful. They could have stayed up, and you could have still built these wonderful places, and people could still live there. I mean, it's like I'm just figuring out, like, why is it one or the other?
Well, I think you touched on it. People don't care, and it's not necessarily malicious or callous.
Right.
It's like lack of curiosity. But then what happens when you say, hey, can I interest you in maybe caring about the culture of this neighborhood? And then people go, oh shit, like I've just been called out. I don't really care. And then what's the reaction? They're going like, oh yeah, like, let me learn about this. No, people go, well, fuck you. And then they adopt this stance that they hadn't really owned before, but they feel almost like forced into having to adopt a stance. It's a weird phenomenon. Like, you see it all the time, right? Like, oh, someone's challenging me, not calling me out, not saying I'm a bad person, but just offering a different perspective. I feel uncomfortable because I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look racist or this or that. So what am I going to do? I'm going to double down and fight against it.
Well, here's something I want to add something positive in here. So on this list, I gotta have positive. We gotta have some positive.
You add some positivity to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna add right now. So the Grammys, I'm at it right now, folks. So I met some people on this list. When the Grammys, not first Grammy, said something different. When they finally added a rap award to the Grammys, they didn't televise it. They were going to televise it, which was kind of like, even though rap was big at the time, it still wasn't where it is today. It was still growing. It was in the late 80s and early 90s, it was growing. All of the nominees banded together and did not go to the ceremony, period. They chose not to be presenters in other categories. They stuck together. These are all, back then it was about rap battles and people were again. They came together and said, this is bullshit. At least should be televised. And you know what happened? The next year is televised, and so on and so on. And so, I mean, so to me, that's an example of making change happen on some level. Just going, you know what? The collective, Jared, came together and said, screw our differences, screw that we're competing against each other. And we don't care if it's the first time, but you're not giving it to us on air or giving us any airtime. Screw you. We're not going to show up. So Fresh Prince of won, but they weren't there.
Yeah.
I love that. I just think that's a great example of sticking together and going, screw you. We're going to change the system.
And and I know Gandhi has his there's some controversies around him that are totally worth that are valid, but as far as like a disposition, and not, I mean, yes, the nonviolent thing, which obviously MLK kind of
Yes.
learned from him, so that's it. I mean, that's definitely impressive, but this idea, like, so I used to teach sixth grade, and I'd teach like ancient India, and then I'd always tie it into like 20th century India and make connections and stuff. So we'd watch the Gandhi movie. So I don't know if you've seen the Gandhi movie. It's like 3 hours long. If you're a sixth grader, like it ends up being about 6 hours because I have to pause it like every 5 minutes and explain what's going on. But there's a great scene, and I can't remember exactly what he so that he was opposing the British for, he's like, we want to have self-rule. Even if we fuck it up, like, we want to have self-rule. We'd rather figure it out than have you all, continue to rules. So he gets, and they're kind of like, oh, this little brown man, and they're kind of mocking him, right? And like dismissing him. So he gets put in jail, and, like, he's like, all right, that's fine. Like he like took the charge out of that, like, because they were expecting him to, it's kind of like Michelle Obama, like they go low, we go high. Like, it's like, okay, like, I get it. That's the consequences of, trying to fight the British Empire. Like, you'll probably throw me in jail a few times. That's, I can handle that. And so it's like this equanimity, but not like, checking out. It's like this combination of calmness and composure and equanimity with like conviction, right? And I think that's what, when I talk about wisdom, to circle back around, to what we were talking about at the beginning, like, that's hard for people. And there are very few people who have that combination. And I think if more people did, we would see things change differently and more quickly. Because when you do that, like, you're not going to get immediate gratification. So in a way, like the rappers kind of bonding together, they didn't know what was going to happen. So it's this idea of being like invested in, but not attached to goals and outcomes, and trusting in your conviction and the validity of your argument, but not trying to control. And, here I am with, a following of 3 people. What if I was, Elon Musk, and I had 3 billion people, like, that's what I kind of, and you see examples of it, like, someone like, maybe, I don't know, Steph Curry or something. Like, there's a certain equanimity who can handle their fame in a positive way, but you don't see it that often. So I'm looking for that. Like, who's got that?
In the chat, they bring up, of course, the MTV, of course. Yes, we know. They didn't play Michael Jackson or Black artists until Epic Records said, we'll take away all of our artists. We don't play Michael Jackson's Billie Jean.
Yep.
That started the whole thing.
Well, and there's that great clip of David Bowie being interviewed by
all the time on here, right? All the time. Yes.
Mark Goodman, I think it was.
Mark Goodman. We've mentioned on this show, mate. That scene we've mentioned on several shows. It gets brought up every show, basically. It's a famous. If you watch it on YouTube, it's a famous clip. And David Bowie always spoke out. Like, just more clips of him speaking out on this stuff. He was the bomb, first of all. May he rest in peace. But I want to mention something musically, actually, in a weird way, that you just said something. Lil Nas X, which was on my list. Another person, Old Town Road, the first version came out. It was very country sounding. It had a little hip hop beat in it, and it's him rapping. Moved up the country charts, and then country said, "No, you're not country. You're rapping. What's going on? It's not country enough," and literally took it off the chart. So it was ineligible. He didn't fight them. He didn't go crazy. He just kept it moving, and pop radio picked up on it. Billy Ray Cyrus, of all people, of all folks in the world, came to his defense, went on the remix, and obviously the rest is history. The song is bigger than one of the biggest songs of all time. But he did what you did. He said, clearly there's racism in there, of course, and whatever, which I highly agree with. So they were kind of like, he's like, I can't fight the funk over here because they're just like, I'm like, but I love this song is good. I know it's country. It's a different kind of country. Going back to Shania Twain or Garth Brooks or Faith Hill or Tim McGraw and Nelly. They all did songs that were kind of crossover or whatever. He was like, screw it. He wasn't attached to the country radio charts. He was not attached to it. That's why I love you brought that up. He said, I'll go this way. And clearly made more money than God. I mean, like, it was like.
Well, and again, I'm not up on, of course I know who he is. I know that song, but I'm not up on pop culture. If you're 100, I'm like 0.0003, maybe. Yes. So I don't know, all the intimate details of all that, but I wonder, it's like, the whole thing of like, once you have power, you want more power. And once you have fame, you want more fame, and you keep feeding it. And even like at a small level, like even for me, like I wrote my book on LinkedIn. Now, I mean, am I the same as Elon Musk or no, of course not, like nowhere near. But in a way like that, I don't want to say fame, but that adoration and that that feedback and that kind of receptivity like fed me to keep writing. Like, so if I wasn't receiving that, would I have kept writing? I like to think I would. Hopefully, maybe, but I don't know. Like, not that I needed like validation, like, because I had enough confidence in what I was saying and what I thought and what I was writing, but there was validation. So you'd write a post and it would, occasionally it would blow up and you'd get 20,000 views and like, hey, 20,000 people just saw my words and 500 people liked it and 150 comments and like, look at me, I'm the king of what? Like nothing, So, take that and your Steph Curry or your Lil Nas X or your Elon Musk or, it's like, and it's just multiplied, ad nauseum.
I'll tell you something, Jared. I'll tell you something. It's funny you bring this up. And you guys, my fans in the chat room will laugh at this too. I'm famous in certain circles. I really am. I am.
You're famous in my heart, James.
Thank you. Of course. That's where it starts. But I mean, in all seriousness, it's something that I have to deal with right now because I think I'm nobody. I think I'm just somebody who's on do these shows, but I get recognized on the streets. I get recognized for various things that have gone viral. I got recognized last weekend at the Grove. This girl was like, I love your shows. It gave me a free Danish. I just hosted a book event at Barnes and Noble on Saturday, and I was famous. I was famous there. Like I'm only 1/100th of these big famous people. I was telling you right now, I get VIP treatment when I walk through the door. It's James Lott Jr., which is like a coffee. Here's the green room. Have a seat. We love Jimmy Kimmel. Your video. It's like it does feed. No, it does feed you. Luckily, yeah. I'm older. Luckily, I get what this all is. I mean, I'm being serious. Luckily, I know who I am. Mm-hmm. I get it's all kinds of part and parcel of stuff. But when you have when it's amplified probably 1,000,000 times, I'm sure something gets lost in the shuffle in your brain somewhere because like you said, you like the pieces you get. It's weird, but I love it too. I mean, I have fans. They call themselves Lotties. I have fans who call themselves Lotties. I have an army. My friends in the business are jealous of me because I have a fan base. I worked very hard for that fan base for 15 years. Yeah. People don't see that part. But it's like not everybody has it. I just know that I have 1/100th of that. And on some days it feels amazing. I like Jared, I like luxury. I like good stuff. I like good shit. I can't afford it, but if someone gives it to me, I like it. I like somebody say, Mr. Lott, what would you need? I love being served. I mean, I will fully admit it. On some level. But again, I'm in check. Like I don't. But then if this happens 100 times more than that, I can only imagine it could be out of control. And some people probably can't. As you said, some people are handling it fine, and others not at all.
Well, and I'm, I stopped watching sports 20 years ago. So the only sport I really watch is I played soccer as a kid, and there wasn't a lot of soccer on TV, in the 80s and even in the 90s.
There wasn't.
But so now, like, I watch soccer, and it's the World Cup, which I have been following. But like, okay, so I don't know if people saw the game. I didn't see the game, but I watched the highlights. And so Messi. I think anyone knows who Lionel Messi is. I think even if you don't follow soccer, like, and he's 35, so he's been around, for almost 20 years, and he's the GOAT, the greatest of all time, right? Arguably. So if you watch the highlights, like, just masterclass. But then, his teammate who scored two of the three goals was this guy, Julian Alvarez, who's like 22. So you think, yeah, like I remember being 22, like I played college sports. I was playing, yeah, like that's awesome. Like he can probably play 3 games in a row. Like but like he's 22 and he's going now into the World Cup final.
Right.
Kylian Mbappe, who's like he's 23 for France. He's playing tomorrow. He'll probably go into the world. So it's like sometimes we forget, whether it's sports or music, like these are just kids.
They are.
And their talent, usually talent plus, good management gets them these opportunities to share that talent, whether it be on a court or a field or with a guitar or a voice or, whatever the domain is. And then they're just thrown into this fame and with all the money that comes, and I'm not trying to be like, poor them, but like that, I don't like, I'm 49 years old. And if someone just, knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Jared, here's $10 million." Like, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I would do with that. And I'm pretty.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that one. Yes.
Let alone when I was 19 and drinking 8 days a week, and like just dumb as shit.
But no, there's something. No, there is. I was going to stop you for a second. There is something to do with age. There is. But go back to your wisdom thing. You could be a smart 19-year-old, but you're still 19. I mean, I thought I knew all kind of shit. I didn't know, but I know now. But I think all of us. I mean, I thought money was just water. I mean, I wasn't like thinking about my future and saving for a house. And I was that kind of 19-year-old. I got that way in my 30s, but like in 19, I was like, you have a job, you spend the money. When you pay your bills every year, you get pays to live, but then you buy that jacket you want that costs $300. Like it's like you don't. I think there is something to age. That we have to kind of bring in perspective. I'm not saying it's a big excuse, but I think there is something about that. Our development, our mental development. If you're 22 years old going to the World Cup or going to the Super Bowl or going to the World Series, any of those end game things, for anybody, it's a big deal. But if that's just kind of like, it's amazing. And if you have nobody around you, everybody's the yes person. Yes. Because you're a corporation too at 22 years old, because everybody's hanging off your tits. You're trying to get whatever they're trying to get for, because as long as you're doing good, they're doing good too, Jared. So I mean, like,
yeah,
there must be something there. There must be something there.
Well, and to bring it back to race, because this is race talk.
Yes. This is race talk. Sorry, this is race talk. Yeah, this is race talk.
But of course, it's always intersectional and multi-dimensional. And I was doing a session the other day. My job, I facilitate difficult conversations, and it's not specifically on race, but it's just kind of more, dimensions of diversity, et cetera. But and we were talking about this concept of like, okay, yeah, Barack Obama, Oprah, Steph Curry, LeBron James, et cetera. We could name probably 1,000 wealthy, successful Black people in media, in sports, in music. If we wanted to, we could. So it's not like they're not there, and they're still Black.
Yep.
So I follow soccer. The 2020, which is actually delayed, so it was in 21, European Championship, which is basically like just this much lower than the World Cup.
Right.
England and Italy were in the final. They went to a shootout, which is a horrible way to decide a game, but that's, when you have a low scoring game like soccer, it happens, right?
Yeah.
And basically, you just trade penalties and whoever scores the most wins, and then they win. So the England lost because 3 players missed a penalty. They were saved. Well, they just happened to all 3 be Black players. Black young players. I think like 22, 20, and 19.
Oh, babies.
The racist abuse they got,
I'm sure,
was like just, heartbreaking.
I'm sure. I'm not surprised.
And these are multi-millionaire, playing for Manchester United and Arsenal. Like these aren't like nobodies. Like these are very wealthy, successful, and they're young and they're Black. And so I think sometimes well, not sometimes, very often, especially white folks, like either forget that or just don't really understand it or prioritize that when we're talking about this stuff.
It's amazing to me, and we're coming towards the end of this conversation because he and I could talk for hours. We can't do that, but you're saying something, you know, as you know, I've talked about this in other shows. I'm not going to say heavy details, but I've been through it myself, as you know. I've been through the whole thing. I didn't get the promotion because I was Black, and I was told that. You know, like I always feel it's so interesting to me that I walk around Black all the time, apparently. Even if I don't think I'm Black, even if I don't act like I'm Black, whatever the things you think about, I think James Lott Jr. first. I think every person who's a person thinks they're a person first. They're not walking around going, I am Black with long hair and this. We're not talking about all that stuff. We're just like, I am James Lott Jr., this human man who wants to like get what he needs to get. It's other people, and you know this already, who cut that down. And when it comes to people of color, usually, not always, nothing always, usually race is involved. A white person goes through the same thing. They may get attacked and all of, but race isn't thought of. It's just not. It's not used as against them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to other races, then it's like, see, you should have let that Latino on the team. See, that South Asian is not as good as you thought he was better than a white player. Like race, I like you. I see the wording. I see the shows. I see the YouTube videos. I've been, like I said again, I've been there. I've been the recipient of it. I can tell you 10 stories of my life that I was point blank told in either racist language or not racist language that's still racist. You know what I'm talking about, Jared?
I do.
He has a book on it. He has a whole book on it. And I know you Black folks in Chandra, like, you're not surprised either. I'm just telling you, we can think whatever we think we are. Oprah Winfrey was Black when she was walked around in a store, and it didn't matter. She was in Europe. She was still a Black woman. She's Oprah Winfrey, the richest Black woman in the world. It did not matter. Her race played a part in this situation that she went through.
Well, and for white folks, the opposite is equally as important. How our race does not play a part in our own consciousness and also in other people. So I'll bring it back to soccer, which is weird me talking about sports.
It's happening right now, but it's happening right now. So it's kind
of
time.
So and people may or may not know these names, like household names, but in the soccer world, they're household names. So Harry Kane, who's the England captain, he's like the all-time goal scorer, blah blah blah, famous. He's 29 now, so he's a little bit older. He's been around for a little bit, but he's still 29. It's not like he's 59. He, in the game on Saturday, or sometime this weekend, he had a chance to score a penalty in regular time that would have tied the game. And then, who knows what would have happened from them. Maybe they would have won. So he steps up to the spot, and it's the World Cup quarterfinals, and he blasts it over the bar and he misses it. So yeah, people gave him some shit. And they said, oh, like, there goes England's chance to win the World Cup and blah. But there's no racist shit. There's no like, oh, well, because he's white. It's like, so he has to live with missing the penalty and, all that pressure and stuff. But he doesn't have to live with being a white guy who missed the penalty.
So we've never talked about that on the show, actually. I'm glad we're touching on this. We're going to end the show, of course. But I'm glad because you're right, that it is equally as important. That's completely. And I want folks to hear this, that he's saying that because it's so true. We get the thing that happened that's already bad enough and embarrassing enough or whatever to that person. And then the race stuff on top of it. It's just like, let's just pile everything on you.
Yeah.
Well, we can't, you know what I mean? Like, well, we can. So but yeah, when it comes to white folks, you have the embarrassing thing that happened. But no, now we're going to pile. And I remember when Simone Biles, who decided to drop out because she had mental issues or everything like that, how they piled on her for dropping out, number one. That's just number one as Olympian. But then I heard all the racist stuff come out. Oh, it's a Black trauma. And what's she talking about this? And like, they really were against her so hard. And a little side note, I know side note, as a child who know this, a young Black actress, obviously it's a woman, Her name was Cindy Michaela. She was on a popular role on General Hospital. She chose to go to UCLA, which is not some baby school, first of all. Goes to UCLA and drop acting on General Hospital. And people were losing their shit. And well, she's a black woman. She needs to, like, you know, she's on a hit on the show. And I'm like, but she's a black woman who should get an education. I mean, I'm going, so the race thing was brought up by both of us. But you see how it was done. It was used against her on one area. I was doing the opposite, going, well, no. I was able to tell her personally. I saw her at the Emmys. So as I said, I'm so proud of you because you chose your education. Acting will always be here. That shit will be here in 4 years. But going to UCLA, which is not some baby school that just like anybody can get into, focus on your stuff. Let's just get the education, girl. Get that education. And she got backlash for it. I'm like, what?
Well, and this goes back to that whole thing about being attached. So I don't know. I've never heard this woman's name before, but you know, because I don't follow, you know, soap operas. But if I did, you know, I'd know who she was, and I'd be perhaps interested in her acting career because I like her character or whatever, which is fine. Like we all have our interests. You know, we follow musicians and actors and sports and athletes, but then my question be, oh, what was her name? I'm sorry.
Cindy Michaela.
So Cindy Michaela. Oh, but you hear the news, like, you know, she quits General Hospital to go to, you know, whatever, you read an article or whatever. And it's like, if I was a fan of hers, of her acting, of her character, why couldn't, or why don't more people go, I'm curious to hear more about her decision. Right? But no, we don't do that. We either go, yeah, like right on, girl, or like, what the fuck is, you know, and we have this.
Well, you know what it is, Jared? Everything's being done to us. It's that syndrome. Yeah. You know that one. Well, it's about in your book. It's about in your book. I mean, it's like it's literally everything is being done to me. Yeah. She's quitting the show because it's hurting me. I don't get my actress anymore. It's me, Jared. Yeah. Me.
She's doing it intentionally to screw with my entertainment.
Exactly. You know what I mean? But you know, we're laughing, but we know there are people who really kind of twistedly think that way. Well, why can't she go to work around her classes? Or who knows what she's taking? Like, who knows what? I mean, like, who knows what's going on? Why should she have to?
And really, who other than her and maybe her parents? I don't know how old she is. Like, right. Who the fuck's decision is it other than hers?
Thank you. I was saying in chat room, people they tore her down. I saw it. Luckily, I met her. And I was able to tell her kind of how I felt, and she was very happy. Very lovely young woman. Because she was up for an Emmy for that role after the fact. But it was just like people really were so concerned about that coupling, that actor, everything being ruined. They chose. I'm not gonna say they forgot. They chose not to look at the human behind it. Mm-hmm. And that's at the stem of everything. Jared, as we end the show, that's the stem of everything. If we can remember the human behind everything.
And I'm gonna do a plug.
Please plug.
It's not really a plug, but it's something that I read recently that I didn't think would resonate so much. And it's an author that I've read plenty of, and you know, she's a Buddhist writer, teacher, etc. And she's old now. She's probably like 86, and she's written about like dying and like how to die gracefully and, you know, with wisdom and everything. And so I walked into my local bookstore down on Piedmont Avenue, I don't know, a week ago, and I saw this just right. You walk right in, boom, it's right on the front table, brand new hard copy, and it's called "How We Live Is How We Die" by Pema Chodron.
I like that.
And I'm like, I got to read this. So I haven't been buying a lot of brand new hard copy. You know, spent $25 on it, right? Which is unheard of for me, but you know, you don't always go buy, you know, brand new hard copy books, and you know, it can get expensive. Yes. But the essence is what we've been talking about. How we show up in how we conduct ourselves and how we lead with curiosity and empathy and compassion or not, how we react or not, how we, all these things we've been talking about, like how we live, that's what's gonna, that's what we're leaving with. And so, and she talks about the afterlife and, you may or may not believe, and she has a great line. She's like, do I believe in that? She's like, well, I'm not sure, but, if there is an afterlife, at least I want to be prepared for it. And if not, then, hey, that's fine too. So it's like this idea of like, how do we change our habits? And to do that, you have to want to. And so if I'm giving shit to this actress because she went to college instead of, it's like, do you even realize that that's a thing to consider? And do you want to change it?
And that's where we'll end the show, you guys. We're on Jared. We'll let Jared end the show time. Jared, I love you, and it's so. I have enjoyed doing this whole year with you. And folks, we met in person for the first time since we saw last met. And it was a mutual love fest there too. But no, I really value you, and I value your opinions, and I really want to continue doing this in 2023. It's one of my favorite things to look forward to do with you once a month or so, or once every couple of months we do this. I love doing it with you. It sounds dirty. I love doing a show with you. I love doing it with you too.
No, I really, what I appreciate, Jane, well, so much, our conversations, how you respect me and give me an opportunity to share my views, and how you can challenge me and it's not a thing. But even if you remember when I first reached out to you with, coming on your show, you're like, okay, I'm a Black man. I got to read this guy's book first. I'm just going to have some white dude come on my show talking about race. I did
say that, folks.
I got a reputation, right? And who would I have been like, well, screw you if you don't, no, like, here, read the book. If you like it, let's talk. If you don't, okay, that's cool. So I wasn't attached. I wasn't attached to being, I didn't know who you were. Right. And so I think that, and then you read it and you liked it and you say, hey, let's do this. And then we developed that friendship. So I think that spirit from both of us has carried into our conversations on these shows, and also just our relationship in general. So I appreciate you. I love talking with you. And yes, here's to more in 23 and beyond.
Here's more, yes. And he did. That exactly is how it happened. I was like, and you guys know me. I was like, who is this motherfucker? This is what he's talking about. And now I've had the book with me. Usually I have it with me. I have it dog-eared. I have things. I mean, you see it, so I have referenced the book many times. So, and tell folks what the book is. So everybody,
we'll do a plug. Of course. I'm at my desk, right? So yeah, A White Guy Confronting Racism, an invitation to reflect and act.
And I think anybody should read it. It's really interesting. And also, you can follow him, White Guy Confronts Racism, on Twitter and Instagram. Follow him. He's not on there that much, but still follow. Give him some followers.
Yeah.
I might tag him on things, some followers. But yeah, if you like this, please comment. You guys hit the like button. Thank you so much for hitting the like button here on JLJ Media. We talk about everything on this channel. I'm enjoying that you guys enjoyed this chat. Thank you, live chat room.
Yes.
They're saying thank you to you. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for joining us. In the morning, I'll be here in the morning, of course, doing my JLJ this morning. So if you want to join me around the morning, I'll be here live on YouTube. And you'll see us next year. We'll talk dates and everything later, but you'll see us next year. Everyone have a happy holiday. And just take what we said and think about it. I mean, that's literally all I ask for. And